So the man you helped steal isn't making you happy? I asked. My husband's mistress started sobbing. Please, she said. I need to get out. I should have hung up. Then she admitted he kept comparing her to me. 2 weeks later, my ex accused me of revenge and I laughed. I sat across from him. He didn't reach for my hand. He barely looked nervous. He just said, "There's someone else." I stared at him. What does that mean? It means I've met someone. I understood the sentence, Jeffrey. He looked away. How long? For months. That was a lie. I didn't know it yet, but I eventually found out it had been closer to 9. 9 months of late evenings. 9 months of him turning his phone face down. 9 months of me asking if something was wrong and being told I was imagining things. That night, though, I still believed 4 months. I asked who she was. He hesitated. That hesitation told me I knew her. Then he said, Allison. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain rejected it. Allison. He nodded. She's been around us. I know. She sat at dinner with us. I know. She asked about our anniversary. He sighed. That sigh made something snap inside me. I said, she complimented my wedding ring. Marissa, please. Please what? Don't turn every detail into something ugly. I stared at him. She was sleeping with my husband while smiling at me across a dinner table. I'm not the one making it ugly. He leaned back and looked irritated. That was when I realized he had already rewritten the story. He wasn't a husband having an affair. He was a man finally choosing happiness. And I was the obstacle he had spent years enduring. He told me Allison understood him. She listens to me. So I don't. That's not what I said. You just said she understands you in a way I don't. He exhaled. This is exactly what I mean. Everything becomes an argument. You just told me you're leaving me for another woman. I'm trying to be honest. No. You're trying to make dishonesty sound noble because you finally admitted it. He went quiet. Then came the speech he had clearly rehearsed. Our marriage had been unhappy for years. We had grown apart. We were basically roommates. I focused too much on responsibilities. He felt criticized. He felt trapped. According to him, we both knew the marriage was dead and had simply been too afraid to admit it. That was news to me. 3 months earlier, we had been discussing an anniversary trip. 2 weeks earlier, he had texted me that he couldn't wait to get home because he'd had a terrible day. Apparently, that was how a man behaved when he believed his marriage had been over for years. I said, that's interesting because I don't remember voting. He rolled his eyes. Then he said the sentence I never forgot. Leaving is probably the best decision I've made in years. That hurt worse than I expected. Not because he was leaving. The affair had already destroyed that part. It was the way he said it. Calm. Certain. Almost relieved. 12 years with me had become a mistake he was finally correcting. I asked, you really believe that? Yes. No hesitation. Something in me went quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't ask him to choose me. I said, okay. He looked confused. Okay. You made your decision. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to do? Compete with somebody who was willing to help you lie to me? He said nothing. I stood up. Then I told him, I'm not auditioning for my own marriage. Within 3 weeks, he was gone. Within 5, he was living with Allison. I didn't learn that from Jeffrey. Other people told me. That became one of the worst parts. Everybody suddenly thought information was a gift. People sent me screenshots. Photos. Updates I never asked for. Allison posted wine glasses, restaurants, weekend trips. Jeffrey posted something about new beginnings. There were quotes about choosing happiness and finally living authentically. I blocked both of them. Then Nathan, a mutual friend who had known us for years, called me. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this. Then probably don't. He paused. Jeffrey's been talking. Of course he had. Apparently, our marriage had been toxic. I was controlling. I never supported him. I criticized everything he did. He had supposedly tried for years to make things work until Allison showed him what a healthy relationship looked like. Nathan asked, do you want me to correct people? No. You sure? Anyone who knew me for years and suddenly believes I secretly made Jeffrey miserable because he says so now can believe whatever they want. At first, I said that because I was exhausted. Later, I meant it. The divorce moved forward. Divorce is strange because something emotionally catastrophic gets turned into paperwork. accounts, furniture, documents, signatures. Who keeps what? Who pays for what? You can spend 12 years building a life with someone and end up standing in a half-empty room discussing who bought the coffee machine. Eventually, I moved into my own apartment. Nothing dramatic. Just mine. The first night, I ate takeout on the floor because most of my furniture hadn't arrived. I cried for a while. Then I got tired of crying. The next morning, I went to work. That was basically how rebuilding happened. Not through one huge transformation. Just normal days. I changed my mailing address. Bought curtains. Stopped asking Nathan what mutual friends were saying. Stopped wondering what Jeffrey and Allison were doing. I started making plans without considering anyone else's schedule. I went to movies alone. The first time felt depressing. The third time felt peaceful. Slowly, Jeffrey stopped being the first thing I thought about when I woke up. Then, 6 months after he moved in with Allison, an unknown number texted me. "Can we talk? Please don't block me." I stared at the message. I knew immediately who it was. I typed one word. "Why?" My phone rang almost instantly. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello, Marissa?" I recognized Allison's voice. Barely. The woman I remembered from those dinners had been confident. This Allison sounded exhausted. She said, "Thank you for answering." I didn't respond. She took a breath. "I'm sorry." I cut her off. "No." She went quiet. "I'm not doing the apology speech." I wasn't. "Yes, you were." Silence. I said, "What do you want?" Her voice cracked. "I think I made a mistake." All the anger came rushing back. The lies. The photos. The woman who sat across from me while secretly seeing my husband. So I said, "So the man you helped steal isn't making you happy?" She started crying. "Please. I need to get out." I almost hung up. Then she said, "He keeps comparing me to you." I stopped. "What?" "He keeps comparing me to you." I sat down. "About what?" "Everything." Apparently, life with Jeffrey had changed quickly after they moved in together. At first it was exciting. New apartment. Trips. Restaurants. Buying furniture. Playing house. Then normal life showed up. Bills. Groceries. Work. Family obligations. Bad moods. Jeffrey became jealous. If Allison went somewhere without him, he wanted to know who was there. If she took too long to answer a message, he questioned her. He had started looking through her phone. He complained about her spending. He wanted explanations for purchases he considered unnecessary. I said, "And you're surprised?" "I know how that sounds." "Do you?" "Yes." She kept talking. Jeffrey had convinced her to reduce her work hours because they wanted more time together. He told her they could afford it. She agreed. Then once she was earning less, he started using it during arguments. He contributed more. He paid more. She needed to be more careful. She should appreciate what he was doing for her. Some of it sounded familiar. Jeffrey had never checked my phone or tried to stop me from seeing people, but he had always hated accountability. If I questioned one of his purchases, I was controlling. If he questioned mine, he was responsible. If I planned something, I was rigid. If he planned it, he was organized. With me, those habits had been frustrating. With Allison, they had apparently become much sharper. Then she said, "He says you were better with money." I laughed once. "He says you kept things organized. You were more patient with his family." I closed my eyes. Then she added, "Last week he told me, my ex never made everything this difficult." For a second, I couldn't speak. The man who had told everyone I was controlling because I cared about bills was now complaining that Allison wasn't organized enough. The man who had said I ruined his happiness was apparently using me as the standard she couldn't meet. I said, "Do you understand how insane this sounds to me?" "Yes." "He told people I was the problem." "I know." "He told me leaving was the best decision he'd made in years." "I know. And now he's criticizing you for not being more like me?" Her voice broke. "Yes." I paced my kitchen. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to call Jeffrey and ask whether he had finally discovered that bills didn't pay themselves and family obligations didn't disappear because you changed girlfriends. Instead, I asked Allison, "Why are you calling me?" "I want to leave." "Then leave." "I'm trying." "What's stopping you?" "We're both on the lease. Some expenses are combined." I cut my hours. "I don't have much saved. So go back to full-time." I'm working on it. Good. He keeps telling me I'll regret leaving. That's his opinion. He says I won't find anybody better. I almost smiled. That sounded like Jeffrey. Not because he had said those exact words to me, but because he always needed to believe losing him would be worse than whatever made someone want to leave. Then Allison asked, "What was he like when things got bad between you?" I looked out the window. "You were there for part of it." Silence. Immediately, I regretted how sharp it sounded. Not because it wasn't true. Because I could hear the shame in her silence. Finally, she said, "I know." No excuse. No defense. Just that. Then she added, "You're right." That surprised me. She took a shaky breath. "I knew you were married. I knew exactly what I was doing." I stayed quiet. I believed everything he told me about you because it made what I was doing easier. What did he tell you? That you barely spoke. That you were cold. That the marriage was basically over. That you were only still together because divorce would be complicated. It became complicated because he cheated. I know. She said Jeffrey told her I had emotionally checked out years earlier. That I didn't care where he went. That our marriage was basically pretend. She wanted to believe him. Then she said, "I never asked questions if I thought I wouldn't like the answer." That was probably the most honest thing she said all night. I said, "You met me." I know. You saw us together. I know. And you still decided his version had to be true? Her voice cracked. I needed it to be true. That landed harder than the apology. Because there it was. The affair worked better if I became the villain. If I was terrible enough, Allison wasn't helping destroy anything worthwhile. She was rescuing Jeffrey from something already dead. Then she said, "I thought I was the exception." I stopped. "What do you mean?" "I thought it would be different with me." That one sentence explained almost everything. Jeffrey lied to his wife, but he would always be honest with her. He blamed his marriage, but their relationship was different. Their connection felt easy because they didn't share a real life yet. Then real life arrived. Rent. Groceries. Laundry. Work. Bad moods. Family obligations. The secret relationship had to survive daylight. Apparently, it couldn't. Allison asked, "Do you think I should leave?" I said, "You already know the answer. I don't trust myself anymore." "That's something you need to work through." "I know." Then she asked, "Do you know anywhere I could stay for a few days?" That was where I drew the line. "No." She went quiet. "And you're not staying here?" "I wasn't asking that." "You were getting close." "I'm sorry. I'm not becoming your support system, Allison." "I understand." "No. Listen to me." She stopped. "I'll answer what I can tonight. That's it. I'm not helping you rebuild your life after the man you helped leave mine." She started crying harder. For a second, I felt cruel. Then I reminded myself that a boundary wasn't revenge. Allison said she had burned bridges. Some friends stopped talking to her after they learned how the relationship started. Her sister, Emily, had warned her not to move in with Jeffrey. Allison ignored her. Now she was embarrassed to call. "She'll say she told me so." "She probably will." "That's what I'm afraid of." Embarrassment is not the same thing as having nowhere to go. She didn't answer. I said, "Call your sister." "I don't know if she'll help." "Ask." "What if she says no?" "Then you figure out the next option." I feel like such an idiot. I paused. Feeling stupid is temporary. Staying somewhere you're miserable because you're embarrassed to admit you were wrong can last years. She was quiet. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" I leaned back. "I hated what you did." "That's fair." "I hated that you smiled at me while you were seeing him. I hated the pictures after he left. I hated that you helped him turn our marriage into a story where he escaped some terrible wife." "I know. But do I hate you?" I thought about it. "No." She sounded surprised. "I don't know you well enough to hate who you are." We stayed on the phone for almost an hour. I didn't forgive her. I didn't tell her everything would be okay. I didn't pretend what she had done was one bad mistake. It had been months of choices. But I also wasn't going to deliberately make her situation worse. Eventually, I gave her one practical piece of advice. Before you tell him you're leaving, make sure you can access your own money and documents. She hesitated. "What do you mean?" "Your income. Your identification. Anything important that belongs to you. Don't take his money. Don't take anything that isn't yours. Just make sure your own things are accessible." "Okay." "And call Emily." "I will. Tonight." "Okay." Then I said, "After this, don't call me again." Her voice dropped. "I understand." "I mean it. I know. Whatever happens between you and Jeffrey cannot become part of my life. She whispered, "Thank you for answering." I ended the call. For the next 2 weeks, I heard nothing. I didn't ask Nathan. I didn't check social media. I assumed Allison had either stayed or left, and I told myself it wasn't my problem. Then Jeffrey called. We still had a few divorce details unfinished, so I hadn't completely blocked him. I answered. What? He didn't say hello. Did you talk to Allison? His voice was furious. I knew immediately. She had left. Yes. When? 2 weeks ago. You had no right. I laughed. He snapped. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. You poisoned her against me. I stared at the wall. Jeffrey, you cheated on me with her. Now you're worried about outside interference. This is different. How? She called you when she was upset and you took advantage of it. No. She called me because she wanted to leave. And you helped her. I told her to call her sister. You knew what you were doing. Apparently she did too. He went silent. Then he said, "You've been waiting for this." For what? Revenge. I almost smiled. If I wanted revenge, I would have encouraged her to stay. Silence. What is that supposed to mean? It means if I wanted her miserable, I would have told her to keep trying. You had no right to interfere in my relationship. I laughed again. Say that one more time. What? Tell me I had no right to interfere in your relationship. He went quiet. I said, "Do you hear yourself? This isn't about us." It became about us the second you blamed me. He told me Allison had packed while he was gone. Emily had picked her up. Allison was returning to full-time work and had changed the automatic payments connected to her own account. Jeffrey described all of it like I had organized some elaborate attack. I asked, "Did she take your money?" No. Did she take anything that belonged to you? No. Did she damage anything? No. Then what exactly did I do? You turned her against me. No. She called me already wanting to leave. You encouraged her. I told her not to trap herself financially. He went silent. Then he said, "You ruined my life." That made me laugh out loud. You told me leaving me was the best decision you ever made. Don't start. What happened? People say things when they're angry. You weren't angry. Marissa. You were proud. Stop. You said our marriage was dead. You said Allison understood you better than I ever did. Shut up. His voice cracked. For the first time since he left, Jeffrey sounded uncertain. For months, he had been convinced of his own story. He escaped. He chose happiness. I was the bitter ex. Allison was the woman who finally understood him. Now Allison had left too. And somehow, he still needed me to be the reason. I asked, "Was leaving me still the best decision you ever made?" He hung up. I stared at my phone. Then I laughed. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally saw how ridiculous his version had become. When our marriage failed, I was the problem. When his new relationship failed, I was somehow still the problem. Jeffrey could lose 2 relationships and remain the only innocent person in both. A month later, Allison sent me one final text. She said she was staying with Emily. She was working full-time again. She had started therapy. She was sorting out the lease and rebuilding her finances. Then she wrote, "You didn't owe me kindness. Thank you for not making things worse just because you could." I read it twice. I never responded. Not because I wanted to punish her. I simply didn't want a relationship with Allison. I didn't want coffee. I didn't want updates. I didn't want some strange friendship built around the fact that Jeffrey eventually hurt both of us. She knowingly participated in something that devastated me. Her regret didn't erase that. But I didn't need to keep hating her either. The divorce was finalized not long afterward. Jeffrey lives alone now, as far as I know. Nathan mentioned once that Jeffrey was telling people Allison betrayed him and that I manipulated her into leaving. His story keeps changing depending on who he needs to blame. I stopped correcting people. For months, I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted them to know I hadn't driven Jeffrey away. I wanted them to understand that he lied. Eventually, I realized I didn't need everyone to agree with me in order to move forward. My apartment became home. My weekends became mine. I stopped checking whether Jeffrey had heard anything about me. I stopped wondering whether he regretted leaving. And I stopped comparing myself to Allison. That comparison had tortured me after the affair. Was she prettier? More exciting? More relaxed? What did she have that I didn't? Eventually, I understood that Jeffrey cheating wasn't proof she was better. And Allison leaving wasn't proof I was better. Jeffrey made choices. Allison made choices. I made mine. For a long time, I thought karma would mean watching Jeffrey suffer. I imagined him regretting everything. But when his new relationship actually fell apart, that wasn't the part that felt best. The best part was realizing his life no longer controlled mine. Whether Jeffrey was happy or miserable stopped determining how I felt about myself. When he left, he acted like he was escaping a life I had made disappointing. Then he discovered that the parts of his life that worked didn't automatically follow him. The bills getting handled. The family birthdays remembered. The plans being made. The 1,000 boring things that keep adult life functioning. He had treated those things like background noise because he never thought much about who was carrying them. Then I wasn't there anymore. And suddenly, he noticed. That doesn't make me a perfect wife. I wasn't. Maybe I focused too much on schedules. Maybe I got irritated about money. Maybe after 12 years, I wasn't spontaneous enough for him. Our marriage had problems. But there is a difference between admitting a marriage needs work and secretly replacing your spouse before leaving. Jeffrey wanted his affair to prove our marriage had always been hopeless. It didn't. As for Allison, I still don't know whether helping her was the right thing. She knew he was married. She met me. She looked me in the face while helping him lie. Part of me thinks she deserved to experience the consequences of choosing him. But if I had refused to help just because I wanted her to suffer, Jeffrey would still have been controlling my choices. Even after leaving my marriage, I would have been deciding what to do based on what hurt him most. I didn't want that. So I didn't help Allison because she deserved something from me. I helped because I wanted my decisions to belong to me again. I didn't forgive what she did. I didn't become her friend. I just refused to turn her misery into my revenge. Jeffrey wanted me devastated. He wanted Allison devoted. Instead, I moved on. She left. And I didn't have to destroy anything. I only stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. So was I wrong for helping my ex-husband's mistress leave him after she knowingly helped destroy my marriage, or should I have stepped aside and let her live with the man she chose?